Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm the posh guy who really likes wrestling. Good God Almighty. Welcome to my first show in which I'll be reviewing the weekly output from the WWE programming. Although not NXT or Main Event or Superstars for this one. God. First episodes are always great, aren't they? Monday Night Raw! And we started Monday Night Raw as pretty much every Raw in 2014 started with an Authority-related promo. Well, that's not actually specifically true. It started with all of the superstars gathered in a ring. Hello, Sin Cara. Aw, I think I see Curtis Axel at the back. And why is Darren Young dressed like most Japanese animators think black people look like? As a white upper-class guy, I feel completely comfortable making that joke. So as you know, John Cena is a man of only really 3 modes. You have the goofy John that jokes about the size of other wrestlers' nipples. I hate that John. You have the amped up John Cena. You know, you better lace your boots up right, Jack, because I love this business and I'm coming to fight. He's slightly better. And finally, there's this John. There's Solemn John. The John Cena that let everybody down. And it's hard to really empathize with this John because no matter how hard his life is, he's still a millionaire. So then the Authority come out and the typical boasting begins. And to be fair, what else can you do on the first show after the Authority returns? Well, not the first one. The first one was last SmackDown, but they don't care about SmackDown. And so why should I? So the Authority had 3 main announcements. 1, we're back, smug. 2, that the main event of Royal Rumble will now be a triple threat, with Seth Rollins being added into the match alongside John Cena and Brock Lesnar. Great. And 3rd, it's John Cena Appreciation Night, or as it's most commonly known, Just Another Monday. Slam. So then we have our first match of the night, which is Dolph Ziggler defending his Intercontinental Championship against the returning Bad News Barrett. Now, already, because Bad News Barrett is returning, there's that kind of extra kind of frisson, well, you don't really want him to lose his first match. He was the champion that never really lost his championship. Plus, Dolph Ziggler is also being punished by the Authority, so it's a lot of tension to this match. I mean, if you have tension about the Intercontinental Championship, it's basically been passed around like a fucking toy at this stage. The ending of the match comes from a beautiful kind of tilt-a-whirl into a crucifix pin counter from Dolph Ziggler, picks up the win 1, 2, 3, and then Bad News Barrett proceeds to wreck Dolph Ziggler. He kicks the shit out of him. And really, does anyone get the shit kicked out of them like Dolph Ziggler? I love Dolph Ziggler. Then Kane comes out and declares that this match is instead a 2 out of 3 falls match. And everyone's just like, oh shit. So the second fall is easily decided. You know, Dolph Ziggler has the crap kicked out of him. And then we get into the 3rd fall, and Dolph Ziggler is basically in the same position he was at with Luke Harper. You know, he's down, he's out, but he's still fighting on. So it's a very strong possibility he could win. Strong possibility Barrett could win. It's for the Intercontinental Championship. It was a great match. Ended with Bad News Barrett clobbering Ziggler with the bullhammer elbow and picking up the 1, 2, 3 for the new championship. God save our queen. Then we have the next match of the evening, which is the Ascension, or as they're properly known, Gay God of War, versus 2 guys. 2 guys. They don't get names. 2 guys. And they clobber them. But who cares? Who cares about a 10-second match against nobodies? Put the Ascension in there with Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. Prove they can go. That way you start building up a level of respect. Whereas here, it's just like, okay, feed them more. Also, one of the guys didn't even get to tag in. That's really just sad, isn't it? He's got a family, probably. They don't respect him. 3rd match, Roman Reigns versus The Big Show. The Giant, the man with the big hand. So, Roman Reigns enters and amazingly completely blanks a kid that, like, offers to shake his hand. It was adorable. Fuck that kid. Seriously, that kid was going to get punched in the mouth. Believe that. And it's the same sort of thing that we're starting to see from Roman Reigns, really. And that's the kind of the problem, is that he has a bunch of moves that pop the crowd. No doubt about it. You know, the drop kick to the guy in the ropes, the Superman punch, the clothesline leaping thing, and he's got one of the best spears in the business. But they're doing the John Cena thing again. You know, he's a big guy. He always wins. Yet every match, he basically gets the shit kicked out of him for 95% of the match. Then 5%, he comes back with a flurry and wins the whole shebang. The problem is we haven't seen Roman Reigns be able to kind of maintain offense or a kind of offensive momentum in a match. We don't know how good he is. He's obviously not a ring general. All he seems to be good at is getting thrown around and then coming back with his, I don't want to use the term, 5 moves of doom. It's a bit samey, and it makes me worried considering what a fucking rocket push they're shoving up his ass on the way to WrestleMania 31, but we'll get to that another day. Roman Reigns wins by disqualification when, I forget, he hits him with a steel steps, that's right. And then Roman Reigns spears the Big Show, steps land on top of him, and they sort of rest on his face in a kind of comical fashion. And Michael Cole almost shits his britches about how, oh my god, his skull's been crushed. No, it isn't. The steps are lying comically on the side of his head. And then we have Nikki Bella versus Natalya. Why are all WWE feuds either women being crazy or women arguing over a man? We had one that wasn't. It was, you know, Brie Bella versus Steph, or Brie versus, you know, Nikki. But that just sort of ended. So it was a fine match. I don't want to be one of those guys that automatically naysays against Divas matches. It was fine. It was fine. It was a good Hurricane Rana from Nikki. Natalya's the best female wrestler on the roster. It's too short. They don't give the Divas matches any time. So who cares who wins? Paige comes out. She's getting involved. That's a bit sort of interesting, maybe. It's just... Then you have Erick Rowan versus Luke Harper on Raw. What are you doing, WWE Creative? What are you doing? They were part of the Wyatt family. The first one-on-one match you're going to give them is on Raw with no huge build-up, and with J&J Security as the special guest fucking referees. I mean, even the primetime players got a pay-per-view match when they imploded. And, you know, God, I'm really ragging on Darren Young today, aren't I? Sorry, Darren, nothing personal. See, what I'm saying is, there's money to be made here. Erick Rowan and Luke Harper, both big guys, both knockout, drag-out brawlers. They can throw each other around. You saw people were getting hyped when they were facing off against each other in Survivor Series. But they've been thrown together with absolutely no sense of occasion, other than, oh, this is happening now. So here, it's like last SmackDown, Erick Rowan versus Bray Wyatt. You know, the student versus the mentor. That's a big archetypical wrestling role, and nothing. But I mean, who really likes making money, hey? Not me, I'm making YouTube shows. So J&J get involved, there's some tomfoolery, some shenanigans, some chicanery, before Luke Harper hits Rowan with what JBL calls the clothesline from Smell, and that better not be the name of the finishing move, because Ryback's all fucking stuck. And then we have the ambulance match between Dean Ambrose and Bray Wyatt, one of the main events of the night. And basically these two gentlemen seem to be trying to cram in as many gimmick matches as they can into one possible feud, trying to break the record of maybe Mankind versus The Rock, Cactus Jack versus Terry Funk, or the Hardys versus Edge and Christian. Now the thing is, a gimmick match works best when the stipulation is married to the level of animosity between the two men. You know, two guys don't hate each other that much, you put them in a normal match. They hate each other, you know, quite a lot, no disqualification. You know, their hatred for each other can't be contained, put them in a steel cage. You know, if it's absolutely worst comes to worst, end it in Hell in a Cell. You know, that culmination of the feud, that's exactly what they did with Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. You know, met up a couple of times on Raw, then lumberjack match, then Hell in a Cell. Perfect progression of gimmicks. Whereas with Dean Ambrose and Bray Wyatt, the problem is the animosity feels forced. I mean, Bray Wyatt interrupted Dean Ambrose's match with a weird ass hologram that looked shit. it's not the same thing. And then suddenly they're in 5 gimmick matches in a row. They're basically just the go-to guys for a bit of creative mayhem. And that's fine. The violence is fun. Who doesn't love violence? I love violence to a worrying degree. But it's empty violence. There's no real emotion behind it. They're both just nut jobs spouting crazy talk at each other and then hitting each other with toys. That's really all it is. That being said, good toys. And they hit each other with them really well. There's an ambulance-themed table. That's weird. They don't have those. There's an elbow drop off the top of the ambulance, earning a "This is awesome" chant. 2 Sister Abigails, one to the door of the ambulance and one to the concrete floor. Bray Wyatt puts Dean Ambrose away. Did Ambrose have to lose? I mean, he lost his big feud versus Seth Rollins overall. I mean, look at it. He lost the Lumberjack match at SummerSlam. He lost the Hell in a Cell match at Hell in a Cell. He lost the TLC match when a television exploded in his face. Fucking hell. He lost the Miracle on 34th Street fight. He lost this match. Basically, Dean Ambrose seems to be coming up short when it counts. Yeah, he won a few things on SmackDown, but on Raw and on pay-per-view, he's on a huge losing streak. And when you look at it like that, you know, he's got the double arm DDT. He's the kind of intense weirdo with the, you know, go-to gimmick matches. He loses a lot. Is Dean Ambrose the new Mick Foley? Now we have a mixed gender 6-person tag match with the Usos and Naomi versus The Miz and Mizdow and Alicia Fox. And how is it still funny? The Mizdow shtick is still funny. I don't know how. He's doing the same thing, throwing himself over the ropes. You know, the slightly delayed, I'm getting a bigger pop than the guy who should be getting the pop stuff. It's the same thing every week, but it's also, just a quick side note. You know that thing that Miz does when he kind of backbreaker, then lifts them up, then turns it round into a neck breaker? That looks shit. That has always looked shit. And it always will look shit. That's just something I thought I'd say. Another interesting side note, the ladies never got tagged in. That's... ugh. And so it ends up with Miz and Mizdow getting the cheap victory when Jay almost runs into his wife on the ring apron. Is there going to be a dissension there? Is that where they're going? Miz and Naomi and Jay thing? Because Mizdow's right there. And, like, his stuff is going to get old at some point and, like, stale, and no one's going to care. So, honestly, strike while the iron's hilarious. And let's have a little feud there, not this marriage thing. And then we have Ryback versus Seth Rollins. In comes Ryback, the most positive, angry man in the world. And, oh, Kane, you scamp, you bastard. He comes out and makes it a 2-on-1 handicap match. And Ryback holds his own. But, you know, 2 curb stomps and they put him away. That's not bad. That's not a bad thing. The fact that Ryback took a curb stomp, started getting up, and had to take a second one, yeah, he was protected. And you know what? I'm really sick of people winning handicap matches when the odds aren't in their favour. One guy shouldn't be able to beat 2 guys. Adam Rose versus Big E. Oh, who cares? Basically, what happened? Big E's doing his sweating gimmick. Adam Rose is turning evil. Now, the thing is, if they went the whole way with that, turn it into like a proper kind of cult and have him sort of as a heel, sending out his army of rosebuds to do nefarious things, you know, sort of like a camp Charles Manson, that would be interesting. I'd be okay with that. But he's just, I don't know, he's just forcing them to dance. And so the ending of the match comes about with Cesaro and Tyson Kidd storming the match dressed as a art school performance piece. So, great. Cesaro and Tyson Kidd are very athletic and good. Just why were they dressed like wankers? And then we have John Cena Appreciation Night. We have the Authority come out. They bring out Ryback, Rowan and Reigns, taunt them with 30-day suspension, 60-day suspension, 90-day suspension. Then, of course, Stephanie McMahon, it's in her genes, it's in her blood. She turns around and says, "You're fired." That's a solid impression. And all the while, John Cena does a bad impression of sad, but a good impression of a fish. And they say, "Thank you, John Cena," and confetti rains down. And to be honest, that's quite funny. That is quite funny. Overall, Raw, I mean, I'm down on it. I'm down on everything. But it was, yeah, fine. I mean, the whole episode had a solid kind of plot that kind of ran all the way through it. You know, a good spine of the show. The Authority are back, and now they're punishing everyone who got in their way. Yeah, it just wasn't a lot of quality wrestling. Match of the night, Dean Ambrose versus Bray Wyatt, or the 2 out of 3 with Dolph Ziggler. But that's slim pickings. I mean, it's 3 hours. SmackDown! And we started with Seth Rollins coming out and doing his best impression of a prick, flanked by, of course, by J&J Security. He asked the timekeeper to toll the bell for the fallen superstars that had been fired on Monday. And this was interrupted by Roman Reigns. Technically, Roman Reigns interrupted a moment's silence. It's pretty disrespectful, Reigns. Dick move. So Roman Reigns talks smack to Seth Rollins, calling him a... what's it called? A snivelling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son. Then he winks to the camera and says, "Seth Rollins, you got donkey dung for brains." Was this episode of SmackDown written by Dr. fucking Zeus? Kane makes a match. It's Big Show and Kane versus Roman Reigns and a partner of his choosing. Though that partner would befall the disfavour of the Authority. And seriously, the poetry here in this episode is... it's just... Also, at one point, Big Show threatened to knock out everyone in the building. I'd like to see that. Him just going across every row. Boomf. 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 Could you just lift your child up so I can... thank you. Boomf. Adam Rose versus Big E again. Alright. Big E is so fast for a man of his size. He is so much better than this. Anyway, he counters the Hurricane Run into a big ending, and out comes, well, Tyson Kidd and Cesaro are already there, and they don't do anything. They just look at each other. The New Day and Adam Rose, Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. Is that going to be a Royal Rumble match? It's not, is it? It's time for the Ascension versus literally who gives a shit. I mean, if WWE don't, no one cares that you're beating up nobodies. I couldn't beat up a nobody. All I'm saying is it's not the best way to establish yourself as a legendary tag team, especially if what they're giving the Ascension to say is we are better than legendary tag teams. First of all, don't bring up comparisons with the Road Warriors because it's really obvious that the Ascension are a rip-off of the Road Warriors. Also, JBL's burying them. He's the heel commentator. Why is he burying the heel team? He says they're nowhere near as good as the legendary teams that they denigrate. They're not, but don't say that, JBL. Aren't you the guy who's supposed to be like, "Oh, I like these guys, Muggle. They'll kick your ass, Muggle." Solid. Alicia Fox versus Naomi. They give them about a minute. And to be honest, it's not a bad minute. They put on some good stuff. You know, there's an impressive amount of athleticism. These girls could go for 10 minutes. 15 minutes, make a thing of it. Now it's time for a triple threat match for the tag team championships. It's the Usos versus Miz and Mizdow versus Gold and Stardust. This, by far, the match of the night. Although, here's the thing. The WWE has quite a lot of tag teams right now, but nearly all of them are fucking stupid. You know, you had Golden Stardust, which started well, but now has just evolved into Cody Rhodes squealing like a cat who's applied the brakes too fast. You've got, you know, Los Matadores. The New Day. The Ascension could be good. Anyway, this match features a lot of shtick. You've got the Mizdow shtick, you've got the Cody Rhodes shtick, but all in all, some good stuff. You know, the Mizdow stuff is funny. Again, I don't get it. There's a brilliant suicide dive, Jay flying through Jimmy's legs. or the other way around. Nobody really knows. There's a great run of finishers, especially from Goldust at the towards the end of the match. Yeah, it's silly. These tag teams are silly, but in the end, they were all amazing performers, and they were all giving it their absolute best. Also, right, Damien Sandow. Earlier in this episode, I said that the Miz's backbreaker into a neckbreaker would always look shit. Damien Sandow did it, and it looked good. And then he kipped up at the end of it. I love you, Damien Sandow. Good match. Usos retain. They made it look like strong champions. Everyone else looked like a strong challenger. Miz and Mizdow, maybe they're working an angle now where the Miz is getting frustrated with Mizdow. Yeah, that could work. Let's have that maybe for the Royal Rumble. It's better than nothing. Just don't give it away on free telly. And then we have Sin Cara versus the new Intercontinental Championship, Bad News Barrett. God save our gracious Queen. First of all, I'm glad they've stopped doing that whole yellow lighting thing during Sin Cara's matches. It made the wrestlers look like they were fighting in a Turkish nightclub. And two, Sin Cara beat Bad News Barrett clean. They just crowned him Intercontinental Championship, and they're jobbing him out to Sin Cara. Why? I mean, I know why. They're gonna probably have Sin Cara versus Bad News Barrett for the Intercontinental Championship either on Raw or at the Royal Rumble. But there are better ways to build a rivalry than just jobbing out the champion. I mean, fucking hell. All the prestige that Dolph Ziggler was building to the Intercontinental Championship. No, that's lazy WWE creative. Bad WWE creative. No, stop it. We have our main event, which is Seth Rollins and The Big Show versus Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. Awesome. 3 members of the Shield back in the same ring, and it starts off with a hell of a flurry. Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, they re-kick off their rivalry with all the kind of frenetic athleticism that I love. I honestly watch these guys go all day long. Roman Reigns doing what he does best, standing silently on the ring apron, building himself up, poised like a coiled spring to come in and do a big flurry of offense and pick up the 1, 2, 3. That's what Roman Reigns is good at. He's a hot tag wrestler at this stage. Roman Reigns picks up the win with a spear on an all good match. I mean, this and the triple threat tag team match, yeah, that's fine for an episode of SmackDown. Wasn't a lot. No story progression, of course, as usual, but no one cares about SmackDown anymore. And now, for the end of the episode, my thoughts on a thing. And this week's thing is the Authority returning so soon. What do I think of that? Well, my opinion is unnecessary and probably unwanted, but this is YouTube, and that's pretty much the dress code here. Well, the Authority returning so soon is terrible storytelling. Simple as that. I mean, it's been a month. A month. It's not so much a banishment as sending them out to get coffee. WWE does this all the time. It just stops a storyline, ends it really quickly, and thinks the audience won't care. Just because it's not like a soap opera or like a properly scripted drama, that the audience won't care if a storyline suddenly just evaporates with no real sense of conclusion. I mean, they did this with what? I mean, Xavier Woods was going to build a heel stable. They just dropped that, and then they come up with The New Day. The New Day. Daniel Bryan joined the Wyatts for about 2 weeks. Then they dropped that. Bo Dallas's winning streak. Nope. Thing is, looking even further back, you've got, Vince McMahon's secret son. Turns out to be Hornswoggle. You've got the anonymous Raw general manager. Also turns out to be Hornswoggle. And now the Authority just return. After a month. Now, this is not to say that their storyline's been scrapped. I mean, obviously it hasn't. The Authority storyline's going to continue. But it's indicative of this short-term, immediate thrill style of booking that the WWE creative team are just obsessed with at the moment. Look at how many times the Intercontinental Championship changed hands since SummerSlam. Immediate thrills. Look at all the part-timers they bring in to just, spice up the big events. Immediate thrills. I mean, speaking of part-timers, for me, I thought that the booking of Brock Lesnar as the WWE World Heavyweight Championship was a good idea. His sporadic appearances would mean that the WWE creative would have to think long-term. They would have to build their wrestling peaks periodically throughout the year, and they would have to find good storylines to fill in the gap to make sure that we don't miss the title. And, for a while they did that. Hell in a Cell, perfect build-up with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. We didn't miss Brock Lesnar. Then the stakes were up for Survivor Series. Then something monumental happened. Sting debuted, and Ziggler pulled a miracle out of his arse. And the Authority was gone. And they've been around for over a year, almost a year and a half. It was like time for a huge shake-up. And look, to be fair, the Raw General Manager of the Week thing didn't work. Partially because they started it with the anonymous Raw General Manager, who's Hornswoggle, let's not forget. And it basically just said, it's the creative putting up their hands and saying, we only know how to do heel bosses, so here's just more of that. Please don't hit me in the face! I mean, you had a couple of cameos with some babyface GMs, but, their fleetingness just made the whole program seem like it didn't have a solid bedrock, a solid structure. It made everything seem really fluid and kind of unstable. That's not an excuse to just jack it in. Try a permanent babyface GM. Try no GM. Okay, if you want to build up this whole lunatics running the asylum thing that Triple H was warning us about, actually have that happen. Organize who runs Raw based on a lottery. What if someone takes control but doesn't want to let it go, so they refuse to give up their power? What if a main babyface like John Cena is slightly corrupted by having all this power? Actually see what happens if the program gets out of control. Just try something new, alright? Have a dog be in charge. Why not? You had Grumpy Cat on the fucking show. Why do I watch this? I don't even know who I am anymore. But instead, no, they just zip back to the status quo after a month. And now, well, now what? It pisses up against the wall Ryback's work with Rusev. That was building to something. Ziggler's work with the Intercontinental Championship, that should have been building to something. And, Erick Rowan versus Luke Harper or the rest of the Wyatt family, that could build to something. And the worst thing is, it took a little bit of Sting's sting away. Basically, what has happened is this dulls the edge for any future huge swerves, because why should we believe that they'll last longer than a month? Anything huge that happens, it's just not going to get that same buzz, because honestly, who cares? We don't feel any sense of permanence in WWE booking now. Of course we know Ziggler, Ryback and Rowan aren't fired. They'll probably be back next week. And no one will care. They're in no real jeopardy anyway, and the main focus is on John Cena. This helps none of them in any real way. WWE Creative may be building to something with this, but because my trust in them has, tenuous as it was, has sort of been left in tatters by this whole thing. So there you go. That's the first week of WWE programming of 2015. And this was my first show. I am the posh guy who likes wrestling. Join me next week when I'll be looking at a next week of WWE programming. Cheerio.